I mean, everybody wants to feel comfortable, but getting used to that uncertainty is also something that at least for me, it pushes me forward, you know? It can give me a lot of anxiety making these decisions. It's like, okay, I don't know if I should be doing this. Like, something that works for me is that when I started like speaking out loud, I start answering the questions that I have to myself. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's a no-brainer. I have to do this. I mean, maybe it's not the perfect way that you expect it to, you know? But at the end of the day, you get things done, and that keeps building more stuff, and you start figuring it out.
I'm Brandon Reed, and you're listening to Ready, Set, Startup, a podcast that brings you industry-tested perspectives from leaders working in all areas of the startup lifecycle, so you can learn from the wisdom that they've gained over years in their fields of expertise and apply it in your own entrepreneurial journeys. Let's get into it. On today's show, I'm talking with Iñaki Gonzalez, co-founder and CEO of Climatta. See a problem, build the solution. It's a tried and true maxim at the core of every successful startup. And it's exactly what Iñaki did after his experience seeing the issues that sustainability teams were facing in their companies. His story teaches so many valuable lessons, including the importance of building and maintaining a strong network of talented people around you. After meeting his now co-founder years prior, he knew they were the right fit and stayed in touch until the product in the moment was right. That product was Climatta, and that moment was, as you'll hear, pretty recent. Iñaki and his co-founder are actively in the process of validating their solution with customers, building their team, and even recently opening a funding round. His company finds itself in a really unique point in time with a lot of moving pieces and critical decisions to be made. Lucky for us, we get a peek into the founder's mind as he guides the business to its next level of growth. That's what he's up to today. But we start a discussion on the schoolyard, where Iñaki found himself selling contraband, aka snacks, to fellow students.
Okay, so I have always had in my DNA the entrepreneurship mindset. I mean, I started my first business when I was around like 7, 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I started selling stuff to my friends in school because I wanted to buy my Game Boy or something like that, and my parents
Yeah.
told me like, if you want it, you have to work for it, and the only way to make it happen was to being creative, you know? So that was, for example, my first business. Then I started selling food in high school, even though it was forbidden to
Nice.
sell food inside high school. Even the directors ended up buying food from my
That's awesome.
store. Yeah. So, I always had that mindset. When I decided to start a business in tech, I think that it was after I graduated college. I was fascinated by the opportunities of escalating a company based in the internet and trying to help as many people as possible. So, yeah, that's when everything started. And the first company that I founded was a fleet and fuel administration system just after I graduated from university. And it was a great experience, a lot of learnings, a lot of hard lessons, you know? But no, I know that this is like the right path that I am pursuing. So right now with Climatta, things are changing. Everything is very exciting, being able to help not only companies, but also like putting our grain of salt over, like, not just waiting on crossing our arms and hoping someone else to figure out what we can do or not with global warming and climate change. You know, that's something very fulfilling.
That's awesome. So yeah, you kind of mentioned there was a couple businesses, I mean, other than your thriving food business and other businesses to get your Game Boy. There is, you mentioned a couple of things in there, but let's talk about what you're doing now. It's Climatta, right? Okay, awesome. Let's talk about that. So did you start that with a co-founder? And if you did or didn't, what was your choice, or why did you choose that approach to either go forward or not go forward with a co-founder?
Okay, so I think that having a co-founder is one of the most important things that you
Mm.
can do because you have these complementary superpowers, right? I mean, if you have like the right connection with that person and there is no, I mean, that you know what are your weaknesses and what are your strengths, and on the other way around, complementing this, eventually it starts to get really hard, you know? So trying to be everywhere, it's basically impossible. And yeah, I mean, that's something that in almost any accelerator they are gonna tell you, right? Try to find
Mhm.
a co-founder, complement your superpowers, and try to build and scale based on customer needs. Um, I met Pepe, my co-founder, in my previous, when we were launching my previous startup, that is what the feed and fuel administration system. I met him around 7 years ago in the Plug and Play Acceleration Program in Mexico, in Guadalajara. Each one of us entered with our previous startups, but since then we became friends. We did other gigs together, we did other businesses. I mean, and since then we have not only been friends, but also trying to put it this grain of salt that I was mentioning you before, right? So try to do well by doing good.
That's awesome. So you had hit it off with him before, and you had just kind of, it was in your mind of like, man, eventually I'd love to work with him in a more official capacity and actually start a company. And then when it came to this idea, you guys just reached out, clicked, and decided to move forward.
Yeah, basically. I
Cool.
mean, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you guys are getting that started, and you guys are, putting the foundations of the business together, did you find that that experience was what you expected it to be as a founder? Going into, you had already had another business, at least one other you mentioned by that you had started, but let's talk about this, I guess, experience specifically with the co-founder. Was it what you expected it to be, and what surprises kind of laid in store for you?
It has been way better than I expected.
Oh, it's great. It's awesome.
Honestly, yes. I mean, in my previous startup, I had other co-founders that it wasn't like the best experience. I mean, lessons in life, right?
Yeah.
So, knowing, getting to know Pepe and his values and ethics, I was like, okay, I mean, I'd love to build a business with him. But as time passes, he has these other, not only like skills from tech development, but also these soft skills that it's always very important to have like these tough conversations with you with your co-founder. Like if something is not right at that time, like speak it up, right? And be candid on on the feedback, but don't wait to start building up other things, you know? So it was something that I mean, I lived that way. I never wanted to say anything, and I always like was drowning in my thoughts. And one time I was having a call with him and I was pretty cranky, you know, and he said
Hmm.
like, Iñaki, did I did anything to you or what's going on? And I was like, holy shit, no, what's going
Hmm.
on?
Hmm.
If you have anything to tell me right now because I don't want things to build up and eventually scale and
Mm.
break the deal, you know? So yeah, I mean, kudos to Pepe. If he hears this, he's an amazing guy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Not only it sounds like your values and vision for the company are aligned, but that takes interpersonally, it just takes a really, really, what's the word? I guess tight fit between the two founders or more than two for it to work. And I think a big part of that is speaking up often and early when things are beginning to go poorly. I mean, everybody uses the analogy, but they use it because it's true that it's like a marriage. You have to stay communicating. You need to be talking. You need to be bringing things up. So yeah, for sure. That's awesome. You guys are starting to find a rhythm and do that. How did you guys initially fund the business? Did you bootstrap it with funds from previous companies? Did you go get investors? How'd you fund it?
Bootstrapped. I mean, there was how everything started in order to validate the idea. We already had like these validated thesis, so to speak. But another guy from that has a very big sustainability consulting firm, I connected with him in an event, in a startup event, and it was like, I need to pitch you what I'm doing. And after that happened, he said like, Iñaki, The board has approved me to help you. So use my name, use my infrastructure, use everything that I know,
Nice.
and I'll teach you everything that I know for you to start the business, validated with paying customers. And um, I mean, we started basically with zero with a Figma. That
Mm-hmm.
was what we had, and his name and reputation on the line, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So those were like the basic things that we needed to start like the business. We started pitching thanks to his like knowledge on cold outreach and stuff. We started generating a bunch of appointments, and 3 months after we closed our first pilot, having
Awesome.
nothing built. Nothing built. It was a
Wow.
Figma. And from that point on, we started like building and scaling and having and iterating over the customer's feedback. And in September 2024, we got accepted into Techstars.
Yeah, that's great. So as you're going through that process, let's kind of transition from the foundational pieces of the business to you're beginning to build it. How did you identify those customers to even begin pitching? Like, hey, all we have is a Figma. Do you want to do a pilot? Like, we need to validate the idea. How are you even finding those early customers and early interested parties?
Great question. So we started like having these ideas over who the ICP is,
Mm-hmm.
and from that point on, we started generating like who is the best candidate over the company and over the industries. And we started using a software that is called Apollo, that helped us do like the segmentation and the cold outreach based on the position of the person over the industry. You can hyper segment over 250 million people.
Mm.
So once we had that, we started reaching out, and good timing, I think, as well, and a very well crafted message started landing different meetings, and they started like confirming that they were interested or that they were the correct person to talk to inside the company. And we started scheduling these appointments until eventually someone converted.
So you were using, it was a combination of connections and networking, and then these actual tools to segment and find different audiences. That's awesome. So at what point, as you're beginning to build the business, actually, I guess the first question is, do you have other employees? Do you just have contractors? Where are you guys at with that?
It's a mix between the two. We
Okay.
were more focused on contractors because all of the legal stuff, it's way more
Hmm.
flexible,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But yeah, I mean, we're starting to hire people full time on
Okay,
behalf of
awesome.
the
Yeah, I mean,
company.
that's where I'm leading to with my question is like, this is just such a pivotal moment for founders. And so I like to dig into this point of, okay, you are setting these foundational pillars for the business. You begin to find customers. Okay, you have some traction, maybe some product market fit. Like, oh, there's more work than time. And this moment of like,
Yes.
okay, well then now I need to start thinking about help. And it's a really, it's a big moment because it can be done wrong. It can be done prematurely. And I think people are really nervous to start bringing other people into this, what they have been like just willing into existence that they feel could like poof go away at any time. But you bring other people into it, and then maybe they even quit their jobs to come join you, and it's just a tenuous point. And you guys are still really early, it sounds like, in your growth. And so, where are you at with that? Where is your thinking for okay? As that kind of timeline I laid out, where are you in that? And when are you going to start kind of bringing people in full time and going full force in it, knowing like all those, hesitations that can be there and present in your mind?
And just as you mentioned, right? I mean, when is the right time to
Yeah.
start like scaling the team? And it started to happen when between Iñaki and Pepe didn't have more time in our
Mm-hmm.
hands. Work starts just adding up, customer requests, feedback, fixing bugs, and also trying to increase that funnel that you have been currently working in, right? When that happened, Pepe actually was the one who said, like, Iñaki, you need to focus on where you add value the most. So you
Mm.
can't be doing everything in the admin and accounting and finance and cold outreaching and sales and
Yep.
whatever, you know? So it's like, where do you add the most amount of value? Is it here? Okay, so we need to hire someone that complements you where you are not adding that much value. And I was trying to remember, there is a very good book that talks about this
Hmm.
precisely. I'm gonna try to reach out and tell you
Hmm.
what the name of the book is. But yes, I mean that's basically how it happened, and that's how we started like hiring the first team member that we had. She started like helping us in analyzing and validating data, but eventually she has been also very involved in almost everything, that she's also learning to code, and she started helping us with these cold outreaches and with admin. And then as she's getting saturated with these tasks, we hire someone below her.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's basically how we are currently building the team.
Yeah, you guys, it sounds like you're really actively in that moment, which is a really interesting perspective. How did you, as you are establishing this product market fit and figuring out who your customers are, getting the right team in place to build, how are you identifying or sorry, differentiating yourself from industry incumbents? I mean, other people doing the same or similar things, your competition. How are you setting yourself apart and creating a moat, a defensibility to your company and your product?
Okay, so there are two things. At the beginning, I think, in my opinion, that focusing on the competition is just a distractor, right? Because I mean, if the market, if the TAM, the SAM, the sum is so big, right? That at the beginning you have to focus on yourself, and you have to have a track. In my perspective, you have to have all of the competitors inside to see what they are doing and how you can improve what they are doing based on your own insights, right? And something that we, for example, have been identifying is that at the end of the day, working with the data is not the problem, but collecting it is. And that is what we aim to be the best. There are a bunch of platforms that do the carbon accounting, that do a bunch of services related to that. But at the end of the day, if you don't collect the data with integrity, transparency, in time, the rest of the results are gonna be just on an Excel sheet. It can support anything. So that is what we aim for as the biggest defensibility that we have. The speed on which we can help you collect the data with transparency that will help anyone inside the company, sustainability teams, finance operations, maintenance, external auditors, to have all of this information at the same time with no human error.
Okay. Okay. So, have you guys pitched to investors yet? Have you had like official pitches? I mean, as a part of Techstars or anything else?
Yes, we opened our round actually like 2, 3 weeks ago, and we have been having a bunch of back and forth meetings
Nice.
with investors. Yeah, something that they teach you is to generate like this calendar density, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
try to condense the most amount of meetings in the least amount of time, and that's something that we are at the moment. So far, we opened around like 3 weeks ago, and we already have like 25% of it committed.
Oh, sweet, man. That's great. Congrats. That's really awesome. So the reason I asked specifically about investors is, I know that that's a huge, that going back to the previous question, the competition is a big point of, is a big topic for investors. If you go through any program or learn anything about a pitch deck, it's like there's a competition slide and you got to talk
Yeah.
about TAM, SAM, SOM, all those things. And so how, if in your perspective of like, listen, there's so much opportunity here, because I totally hear what you're saying. There's so much opportunity here. Let's just build this product, build it the right way, and we're going to capture enough market to really gain some traction here. How do you pitch that to investors? I mean, who want more hard data on like, no, who are your customers? How do you differentiate yourself? And have you kind of found a tension there, or do they pretty much agree with you?
They pretty much have agreed with what we are doing and what we are saying. I mean, numbers prove themselves. So
Mm.
we have like these big names or
Mm,
logos
you're already getting
working with
some,
us.
yeah. Yeah,
Yes. So that, I mean, that's like validator number one, right? And
totally.
having mapped what the competitors are currently doing and how we aim to differentiate, but at this time it's like we need to focus in gaining more traction in order to be uh, uh, an important competitor in the market, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, that I think that that's the name of the game. There has been different conversations with different funds that say like, okay, yes, but this competitor is very well funded. They have over $150 million in already in their bank account raised. And what's the differentiation between you and them? It depends on the narrative, but I think that, for example, the differentiation between these guys and us is that they are already a very big company that moves slow, you know?
Mm.
So as a startup, the main advantage that you have is speed in which you can develop, iterate, pivot, and ship products.
Yep.
So a customer that we have is like, Iñaki, I would rather work with you that are in these like very early stages, but can adapt the product to what are the customer needs and not
Yeah.
just trying to grab something out of the shelf. And maybe it's not the perfect solution for me, but it's the only thing available,
Hmm.
you know? So I think that that's a very key differentiator for, I mean, the life cycle of any company, you know, or in life that you are born, you grow, and then you mature, and then you die. You know, I think that it's basically the same with any startup or a
Mm-hmm.
company. Eventually you get so big that all of the processes become very bureaucratic, you stall, you lose momentum, and then that's when these type of startups enter to the market and start playing with these big guys.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting that you know that about both your company and your industry, and that like I'm sure that that's more applicable to certain markets, certain areas than others. Of that the your customers and clients looking for solutions like what you're building value that speed to market, value that ability to pivot and adapt. So because sometimes I'm assuming I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there's products where it's like no, it's like this is in place. We revisit it every year, see if we need anything different. But like if something needs to be more adaptable, that you can then as a startup come and lean into that and say like, hey, this is what we can offer. And really understanding that is like a key value prop that you can communicate in those sales meetings. I think that's really good to understand about yourself. As you guys are, okay, so we're kind of still in this place where, yeah, you're bringing the people on you need to bring in, and you're growing. What up till this point, I mean, can you identify a big bet that you've needed to take, a risk that you've had to really step out on a ledge for, and what gave you the confidence to take that risk, and what did you learn from it?
I mean, I think that the biggest risk is starting, you know, because everything,
Good point.
every
Yeah.
time you think like this, is this the right moment, or maybe I should wait a little bit longer, or should I ship the product, or maybe I can wait for me to fix that bug or to create this feature. So it's always like this leap of faith that you have to take in order to continue like moving on forward, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So for example, I mean, as I recently moved to New York. Why? Because I mean, it's kind of a leap of faith. I think that the
Mm-hmm.
market is here, the opportunities are here, and it took me like 2 weeks to decide whether I was coming or not. You know, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's a very interesting book from Andy Grove, the one of the CEO of Intel in the 70s, 80s, that he published inside Intel that is called a term that he invented. It was productive paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like the most important thing is to always keep on moving. And also, Paul Graham, the founder from YC, says that a startup is like a shark. If a shark stops swimming, it dies.
Mm-hmm.
So keep on moving. You'll figure it out. If it wasn't that way, you can go back and then move to the other side, you know? But it's always trying to bet on what your gut is saying, you know? But also try to have these measured risks. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, not just jump out of the cliff
Right.
without expecting a result, you know, but it's like, okay, I'm gonna make this decision. I have these potential outcomes, and if this doesn't happen in certain amount of time, I'll go back to the whiteboard, iterate, and rebuild or redo or restart, whatever. So
Mhm.
to not lose momentum.
I actually haven't heard that book. I've heard of Andy Grove. I knew he was the CEO there, but I haven't heard of that, so I'll check that out. If you, with that in mind, right, this productive paranoia, that always be moving, is that something that motivates you and inspires you, Iñaki, or is that something that feels a little bit intimidating of like, oh man, seriously, like always pushing, always adapting, always changing? Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I a great question. I mean, it's always uncomfortable, because eventually, when you started like settling in somewhere or doing something, n- I mean, everybody wants to feel comfortable, but getting used to that uncertainty is also something that at least for me, it pushes me forward. It can give me a lot of anxiety making these decisions, and I have to talk to Pepe and to my family and to my friends, and it's like, okay, I don't know if I should be doing this. I mean, but when you start like something that works for me is that when I started like speaking out loud, I start answering the questions that I have to myself, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's a no-brainer. I have to do this. And I think that also you find you find a way. I mean, maybe it's not the perfect way that you expected you know, but at the end of the day, you get things done, and that keeps building more stuff, and you start figuring it out. Eventually. I mean, eventually.
Yeah, I think nobody, probably the answer is that nobody would give the answer of like, oh no, I'm always comfortable with taking risks. I always feel clear headed and no anxiety about stepping out on the ledge. But I think getting used to that uncomfortability, kind of welcoming it, almost seeking it out as a way to, like you said, continue moving forward is an important part, I'm sure, of being a founder. As
Exactly.
you continue to grow, how are you maintaining your? I mean, you guys probably haven't built necessarily big enough team to start building culture, unless you have and share that. But like, how are you gonna? How do you plan to maintain the initial vision that you guys set out for? Like, this is what is this is the problem we're solving in the world. This is the impact we're creating. This is what matters to us. How are you going to keep that intact as you grow and scale?
Leading by example.
Hmm.
I mean, not just saying what people should be doing, but actually show what you're talking about. I mean, you can't ask anyone something that you're not willing to do
Mhm.
yourself. So, leading by example.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that people follow leaders like that for sure. Let's talk. Let's start breaking down here some specific areas that can maybe provide some specific and applicable insight for other founders listening. So, if there was one thing that you wish you better understood about the funding process, and which you guys decided to move forward bootstrapping, but you've also pitched to investors. It looks like you've opened a round. But there's a lot to learn along the way that has made those informed decisions. If there's one thing you wish you better understood about the funding landscape when first starting a company, what do you wish that would be?
Start building relationships
Mm,
with founders and with funds as early as possible.
yeah.
People invest in people. They have to trust you. You are signing a commitment for over 7, 8, 10 years. And even though that a lot of funds say that we move fast and we make any decision in between 2 weeks, I think honestly that that's bullshit. I mean, they
Hmm.
they want to know referrals. They want to know with whom they're gonna be working with, and I think that that's very important. That's step one, and also have a track on who the investors you want to talk to are and why do you want to talk to them. That consumes a lot of time, because once you have like these spreadsheets of 1,000 investors, you have to make your research. thoroughly, you know? I mean, you have to enter to the investor, to the VC site to see if they invest in the thesis, in the stage, in the vertical, the e-ticket. And if they do so, who's the partner that you should be talking to? You know, do you know someone that can help you with an intro or not? If not, try to find someone who does, you know, and try to send them a very, from time to time, it can be difficult, you know, but try to send the most personalized message that you can,
Hmm.
you know, but by actually like digging in into their profiles, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, whatever, it's like, and Brandon, I want to reach out to you because you do this, this, and that, and I think that it aligns with what we are doing because of this and this reason. That way, the opportunity of someone being engaged with you, it's gonna be day and night. You
Hmm.
know, it's gonna make the difference. So yeah, build relationships as soon as possible and don't expect that you will close your round easily.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, don't generate expectations of on anything. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to continue building your business, whether or not you get funded or not, you know? I mean, I think that that's something that a lot of, I mean, basically all of the VCs are gonna appreciate. It's like,
Hmm.
I don't need you to build my business.
Hmm.
I am inviting you to be part of this, you
Yeah.
know?
Good
I
language.
mean,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's the name of the game,
Yeah.
and don't accept terms just because you don't have the money. It's okay to say no. And actually, I think that VCs also appreciate
Hmm.
a founder that says no and is willing also to negotiate as well, you
Sure.
know? But
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a great answer. I think probably, man, you could probably answer half of the questions that anybody asks you as a founder with people, relationships, building a network. I mean, it's just where it starts and ends with founders and startups. It's the name of the game. I think it's one of the co-founders of Airbnb, Joe. Oh man, I can't believe I'm blanking on his last name. But one of the founders of Airbnb says the best time to affirm your point. Says the best time to raise funds is when you don't need to raise funds. Says something to that effect of like that's the best time to go get money is when you don't need it because then you can go in with some leverage, some bargaining power, and be able to to say no when you need to. If you're going like with you got to meet payroll next Tuesday, and if not you're going under, like that's just not a great position to be going into any negotiation, let alone one that like the balance of your business
yeah,
your business is in the balance of that negotiation. Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, something that also Andres from Techstars is always telling us is like, okay, I mean, if it's like a binary decision whether taking that check or not, because if not, you're gonna die.
Hmm.
Okay, accept it, you know?
Hmm.
But that's why start building relationships earlier and start generating momentum so you
Right.
don't find in that, you don't get yourself into that situation
Yeah, because inevitably you're
where,
going to end up with a term sheet with with terms that aren't favorable, and like you got to take the money, but it's not cheap money, and it's not beneficial money for you and what you need. So it makes total sense. It's a really good point. Let's talk about scaling a little bit. What word of caution could you provide to founders who are listening who are actively scaling their startups in a similar position that you are of like, okay, we have some traction, we have validation, we're even, opening a round and really looking to take everything to the next step. What lessons have you learned the hard way and all that?
so there is an analogy that also Andres always told us. Is like, okay, so imagine that you are opening up a pizza place. If your recipe is very shitty, even though you try to scale a shitty pizza, nobody's gonna buy you, you know? So try to make the perfect recipe for yourself. Okay, so now I have perfection the dough. Now I'm going to the sauce and then I'm going to the protein or whatever. So once you have that good recipe, you can start scaling to other places and you can start opening up more restaurants, right? So something that we have been very focused on is to not just scale because we have some paying customers, right? But rather focus on the retention and expansion of usage inside those customers.
Hmm.
scale the operations inside, add more value to whom you already have, because getting that first customer is basically the hardest one to get, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So do something people absolutely love and try to always continuously add value to that same person. And at the same time, build up your funnel, because sales life cycles take time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would focus on the retention and expansion of usage with the customers that you already have, build up the funnel, and try to do like this customer discovery based on the needs that these guys are already paying you. Like, hey, Brandon, we have this solution that certain customers are building with this and that, and this is the success story. And it starts like generating this momentum and starts building trust with the rest of the guys, and they are gonna start recommending you to their friends, to their peers, and that's like a natural way of scaling. But I think that, I mean, after you have this, something that we have planned is that, okay, I have this recipe, I have paying customers, we are iterating the product. What we need to is to amplify the funnel. There's another great book that is called Predictable Revenue. I don't know if you have read that one. I absolutely recommend it, because I mean, if you have your sales life cycle, if you have what the average contract value of your solution is, if you know who the ICP is, if you know basically everything, now the name of the game is build up the funnel, because in 6 months you have to be closing what you started with whom you started conversations in month one, you know? So, yeah, start building that, and also your IT team, so you can, so it can support your growth.
Yeah, I love that. There's a lot of good bits of wisdom in there for sure. What's a failure that you can identify in any stage of this, in this company or any others? A failure that still stings, and what did you ultimately learn from it?
Okay, so be cautious with whom you partner with.
Hmm.
Clear written agreements are the most important piece of advice that I could
Yep.
give. Uh, in order to not generate the different, I mean, to not generate over expectations, you know, it's like I
Sure.
am committed to this and that, and if I don't do this or that, this is what's going to happen.
Yep.
So I think that that would be the most important. And also, don't develop things that people don't need.
Hmm.
Do, do it as lean as possible. Validate that the customer is willing to pay. And from that point on, you start building, but not try to have this perfect solution, hire a bunch of engineers or dev shops that they're going to charge you shit ton of money. You know,
Yep.
it's like, do it lean, validate the need, and from that point on, start using no code tools, WordPress, learn to code. I mean, right now that we have ChatGPT and Vercel and whatever,
Hmm.
you can develop and ship the first product by yourself, even if you don't have like technical skills,
Hmm.
you know? So yeah, don't overspend money in IT development when you don't have anything to sell.
Yeah, validate your idea. And then I think that first point you made is really good, of like clear written agreements to protect everybody. I think is always wise words. All right, let's move into a couple closing questions here I have for Iñaki. Let's see. When you speak with other entrepreneurs and other founders, whether they're in their own companies or they're aspiring to do that, what's one question that you feel like you get asked the most? And what's a question that they're not asking, but you believe they should be?
Something that they really ask a lot is like, how do you come up with good ideas? You know, and
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
but the reality is that, again, there is no perfect timing and there is no perfect idea. You just have to be in love with a problem to see
Hmm.
how you can find a solution to it, you know?
Hmm.
Be very open-minded and very curious on how things are working and why are they working like that, and if there is an opportunity for you to change that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I have a bunch of friends that they started working in different companies, and it's like, no, I'm just staying here for 1 or 2 years to learn my craft, you know, and then I'll start my own venture. And it's 2 years have passed, 3 years, 5 years, and how are you? When are you
Hmm.
starting your venture? The thing is that I'm not really sure what I should be starting. And I mean, be, because nothing's gonna be perfect.
Hmm. Hmm.
Never. And in the beginning, it's gonna be a very ugly baby and a very ugly fetus, but you
Hmm.
have to nourish it and take care of it. And eventually it has to start growing. And if it doesn't grow, go do something else, but don't
Hmm.
stop moving.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think often people get really, really hung up on the idea. And then even once they've come up with one, even they're like, okay, here's my idea, you'll check in with them, every 6 months, and you just keep hearing like, well, that was a great idea when you told that to me. It feels like what next steps have you taken? And people just sit on the idea because I think that it's those next steps, those actual practical things of like how you take the idea and make it into a reality is just so tough to do. It takes a network, it takes connections, it takes curiosity, all those things you're saying, kind of everything you've talked about really in this interview that coalesces to make that to allow somebody to take the next steps from idea to execution. And that's where the magic is for sure. Imagine that you woke up at the start of your career. You were able to retain all the knowledge and experience that you have now, but you're just at the beginning. How do you spend that first week of your fresh start?
Talking to customers,
Mm. Yeah.
interviewing people. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're you're saying, because this is, to this question in particular, I love this question and I hear a variety of answers, but if I were to pick out the one that I heard most often, it's start talking to the people that you are creating the solution for. Because just to go back to your earlier point of like, don't build things that people don't want, like talk to them
Exactly.
first and build what they're asking for. Yeah.
There's another great book. I know that I am just name
I love
dropping
it. This
different
is great. I'm
books.
going to include all these in the show notes. Yeah. What is it?
The Mom Test. A great book to validate that your idea is simple to understand, that the customer can give you feedback, or the potential customer can give you some feedback, and start building from there. Ask very open questions, so you can start collecting data and not just try to navigate or try to to get the answer that you want. Don't try to navigate the conversation to get the answer that you want, but rather give like the opportunity to that customer, potential leader, whomever, to give them to give you the insights or whatever they are thinking out loud in that moment. So that's gonna be the most genuine thing to do, to start building with what they are saying. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. Absolutely. No, I think that's really good. So lastly, you've mentioned a couple books here, and if it's one of these books, that's fine. But I also I'm just looking for a tool, whether that's a book or a quote or something else that you've really found indispensable to you in your personal or professional progress over the years.
There are a lot of books. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the basic ones, the From Zero to One, The
Mm-hmm.
Secrets of
Mm-hmm.
Sand Hill Road, Predictable Revenue. I think that it
Mm.
works. I mean, it's a Bible that everybody should
Yeah.
be reading. I mean, if you want to have a SaaS, it's basically how it works.
Right.
It was written by the CRO from Salesforce, so
Okay.
these guys developed the playbook. um and there is another great book that I love, and I have like this graph everywhere, is the one that is called Crossing the Chasm. I mean, is knowledge. I mean, it was written, I don't know when,
Yeah, a while
80s,
ago.
90s. I mean, it was a while ago, but you read it and it's it continues making sense.
Timeless. Yeah.
It's timeless, and it really gets you to understanding the situation that you are at, and maybe it's not the solution that you're building, but it's the market and the ICP that you're talking to that is not the ideal one, but it's having like conviction and having that leap of faith in jumping to the next cohort of potential customers, but try to find the ones that that you currently satisfy the needs for, you know?
Yeah.
Very risk adverse, that are willing to try new stuff, that are innovators, that like working with startups. Because if you try to work with, I mean, with a very big entity that needs a lot of reputation, that we were discussing it before, right? It's like, I'd rather have something out of the shelf because I know that it works, because I want safe bets. These guys are not gonna be the perfect fit for you at the beginning. So focus on the customers that according to the stage that you are at, and crossing the chasm.
That's a classic. That's a great one. And
Yes.
yeah, it was written a while ago, but I know it's been updated several times.
Yeah.
And I think it's absolutely, like you said, just a Bible to go back to. There's a lot of good info in there. Well, Iñaki, thank you so much. This was super, super valuable. I loved hearing your perspective as a founder from someone who's founded previous companies and gone through that process. Some founding relationships that worked, some that didn't. That you're now in a process of like actively validating with your customers and scaling and even just opening around. This is awesome. Really good perspective, really unique, and I appreciate you sharing that with my audience.
No, and I really appreciate your time and the opportunity on having this conversation with you. I really enjoyed it. I mean,
Awesome.
there were a lot of things that I didn't know that I had them in the back of my head, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah, for sure. I mean, you
had a
made
very
that
fun
point. You're
time.
like, just start talking about it. And when you start talking and articulating these thoughts, then they become concrete. And yeah, it's helpful to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. All right. You take care. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Brandon. It was a pleasure.
If you guys enjoyed the show, leaving a review is the best way to help others find it. Second only to sharing it directly with your friends and family. Thanks so much for helping get the word out. Hit me up at brandon@readysetstartuppod.com if you have additional questions about a topic I covered, have suggestions about another area you'd like to see me dig into, or just want to say hi. Please reach out. I'd love to get in touch. Keep imagining, keep creating, keep inspiring your spheres of influence with what you're passionate about. The world may just need that dream that's in your head. See you next time.